puking now. I'm really sorry it's not been away for a long time.
He's Dutch. He's Holland. I thought you see the big red, the big orange
Right.
glow.
Oh, we're now on running. Thank you, Pitzal, for the connection. We're up to the bottom line on 9 Aleph from Beis, and we're describing the different materials in Beis Hamikdash. And here is a small picture Ben puts up on the group. Here you can see the linen 6 times 6, and here you've got the minimum il, which is made out of 3 times 8. If you look carefully, the il is 12. That's 6 times 2. The Parichas is 24. It's 4 materials times 6. And the Chedesh Ve'ephod is 4 materials times 6, plus the Zov, which was 4 more. So therefore, you've got altogether 28. So let's think more inside. Top 1 base on the top line. Kalil means a twist, a braid. A braid of techeles. So it has to be at least 2. Just like by the poriches was 6 of the blue, also here it's 6 of the blue. It says kalil techeles is 12. Let's learn from the pomegranates. How many threads were in every pomegranate? 24, 8 of every material. We would rather learn the me'il from a choshen nefed, which is a better cloth, than from the rimonim, which is just an adornment to the clothes. On the contrary, let's learn the me'il from the me'il, rather than learning the me'il from something else. That means, if you've got a question where to learn the me'il from the pomegranates which come on it, or from something completely random, it's better to learn from the pomegranates on it. Answer more. Since the Torah says sheish, we said yesterday it says sheish 5 times, and one of them was spare. The one that was spare was to tell us that the me'il is made out of 6 threads times 2. Arba the shita, 4 of 6. That means 4 different materials, 6 of each. You don't need to work it out. It's obvious it's going to be 24. Why is it obvious it's going to be 24? Because the Torah says clearly there's 4 materials, and the Torah says sheish regarding one of them that there has to be 6. Therefore, we know that all the rest should be the same. There were 5 materials, 1 gold and 4 threads. So therefore, we do. Arba the shita. 4 times 6 is how much? 24. Esim v'arba. And Zov, arba and gold is another 4 of gold is 28. Says the Gemara, Esim v'tamna is 28. Maybe we should do each one of them 6, including the gold should be 6. Says the Gemara, you shall split the threads. Pesilim. Pesil could be Lashon Yochid, but it says a Pesilim Lashon Rabbi, which is 2. And you cut it down the middle, like an arba, that's 4. So you cut the threads of Pesilim, which is plural, the minimum is 4. You put them into each thread, which has 4 materials, linen, red wool, purple, and blue wool, and you put the gold with every single one of the threads. Now, how are you going to do that? Navid, arba, the tray, 2 in each one, 4, 2 threads, that's 8 threads altogether. Havlu Tamanyo, that's 8, and there's nobody says 8. Maximum was 6. Now with the tray, 2 of 2, the tray the chad, and 2 of 1. For Sisa, Shukras Yisov, Shavois. There are 2 sources that we do 4 times 6 and 1 times 4. Let's get this very clear. We're discussing the choshen and the ephod. The choshen and the ephod, how many different materials were used in the choshen and the ephod? How many different materials? 5. Gold, blue wool, purple wool, red wool, and linen. Of the 4 of them, we used 6 threads of each, that's 24. Of the gold, we only did 4 threads. The reason is, we did 6 of linen plus 1 thread of gold. 6 of blue wool, 1 thread of gold. 6 of purple wool, 1 thread of gold. Therefore, each thread of gold was mixed with 6 of the other threads. Asking the more, maybe you should do 6. The more answers 2 sources. Either it says the kitzis pesilim. Pesilim is plural, which is 2. The kitzis is to cut it in half, that's to 4. Or it says you should do it with them. To do it with each material, put a gold thread. So with each material, do 1 gold. If you start doing 2 of each, it'll become 8, which is too much. As somebody who tears the godim, the clothes of the kohanim, loike gets malchus. You're not allowed to tear the clothes of the kohanim. Fading more, master of Achabai Yaakov, when the Navid lay suffer up to the first wide line on Ein Beis Amud Aleph. Make a rim. There are 2 ways when you say something. The Torah says, make a hem that it shall not tear. There's 2 ways to read it. One is, you must not tear it. Another is, make sure that you make it in a way that it won't tear. But that if it does tear, not necessarily you'll get punished, because it's just the Torah telling you, try your best not to make it that it won't get torn. As a miksiv shelo yikra, that it should not tear. It should says lo yikra. If it would say shelo yikra, that it should not tear. What the Torah tries to tell is that you should do it in a way that it shall not tear. The Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says lo yikra, do not tear it. Similar halacha, if a person removes the choshim from the ephod, and somebody removes the poles of the owen, gets marked. Don't remove the choshim from the ephod. Don't remove the poles from the owen. And we'll see in a moment that they did by the Masois take it off. We see maybe there's no issa to remove it, like I said before. I mean, the Torah says, work your best to make it that it should be hard to remove. How the Torah says, that you shall not. The Torah is telling you, do it in a way that it shall not happen. The Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says, do this, and lo yizach, make sure it doesn't remove. So therefore, the Torah is telling you a separate love, and indeed, the Rambam Paskas in the 630 mitzvahs just learned 3 different mitzvahs. Don't tear the big dekona. Don't remove the poles of the oil. Don't remove the choshev from the ephod. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina Rom asks the contradiction. Ksiv betabois you abadim lo yosu mimenu, that they shall not be removed. Uksiv v'huvos badam betabois, that you should put the poles into the tabois, which says that you do put them in and out. On one place it says don't remove it. Another place it says put them in and out. Okay, it said misparkim ben yishmotim. What would happen is like this: you'd make the poles of the oven thin on the inside, and at the ends getting wider and wider. To get them into the rings, you'd have to press very, very hard, push them into the rings, and then they wouldn't come out easily. But you could pull them out. Mm-hmm. So one pasuk says, put it in a way that it shouldn't come out, meaning that the ends of it were wider, it should be hard to pull out. But on that, the pasuk says you can get them out because in the middle they were thin. It was not impossible to get them out.
You would go through, but hard to push you.
That's right. Yes. Very good. Says the
gold, right?
Yes.
So they get damaged?
No, there was wood-plated gold. I hear it means you push it through without damaging it. I hear. The word says, "Taninami yochi b'tabois on your abadim yochelu zos mikim should be moved at all. Tamim avovos b'adot tabois that you can move them. If avovos abadim yochelu chvasim yotzei stick them in and out. Tamim b'tabois on your abadim. Okay, so misparkim and ishvotin, they would come out, but they wouldn't be easily. You could get them out, but they won't fall out. That's the halacha. See the wood standing. If you look at that stand over there, the wood, is the wood going up the way it grew? We have no idea. Probably actually that sawdust which has just been glued together. But the Torah says by the Mishkan, every board had to stand the way it grew on the tree. That means the bottom of the board was on the floor, the top of the board where it grew on the tree was on the top. Now we're going to have another explanation of the words Omdim. Dova Acher, another explanation. Omdim that they would keep their cover standing. Rashi explains that wood often rots after many years. And then the things that you put on it fall off. This didn't. The gold cover on the Atzei Shittim remained there forever. Dova Acher Omdim. You might have thought the Mishkan was destroyed and therefore we've lost the beams. That The Amudim stand forever. The Amudim will stand forever. And when the Beis Hamikdash, the third Beis Hamikdash gets built, there will be a certain area set aside where the Oren and the Mishkan, where the Mishkan will be built. That means there will be another Mishkan. The beams of the Mishkan will never be lost. Anybody know why the beams of the Mishkan have got that special schus and never get lost? Oh, very good. Yaakov planted them. And since Yaakov was a very big tzaddik, was the one who made sure that they should grow, when a person, the beginning of it, when something is planted, the Shem Shomayim, then they last forever. Big Day Asvod means the clothes which they served in the Mishkan. The word Svod can also mean Lashon Svid. Behevid Svid Me'ir. It's a part of this week's parasha. Does anybody know how to translate the word Svid? Remainder. What? Yeah. We know they left. The Shoy's back here. Says more of vine base and with base. In Mole Big Day Kona, if not for the close of the Kanim, Lenishtaim is so named Shali so the polit will be nobody left from Khanisol. The reason why the Torah refers to the close of the Kohen as solid is to say that if not for the close of the Kohen, there will be nobody left in Khanisol. It is interesting that Rashi says the idea is because with regard to them, they bring korbanos. Rashi says because it brings from other places that each beged was mechaper for another thing. Now, the Migmor says that this time is Soneim Shalisol, from the enemies of Klal Yisrael, there'll be nobody left. What does that mean? Klal Yisrael themselves. Very good. Why do we call them the enemies of Klal Yisrael? Because whenever we say a curse, we don't want to speak about Klal Yisrael themselves. So what we do is we say there would be nobody left from the enemies of Klal Yisrael. But who do we really mean? Klal Yisrael themselves. Yes, this comes up a very, very lot in Gemara. There would be nobody left from the enemies of Klal Yisrael. We mean Klal Yisrael themselves. We don't want to talk about Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Shmuel by the Chemini Yoma B'Yoshan Godim Shegud in Isen Kipiyosam Mikleet Umesadin Mehem Kelum. Normally, when you take cloth off the loom, what happens is you just get a completely flat piece of cloth, which still needs a very, very lot done to it in order to make it into a suit or whatever. But the big day kahuna, they would come off the loom ready-made, with a tiny bit remainder. Says the Gemara, Maihi, what was the remainder? That would be sewn onto the clothes. You don't sew them on. It has to be weaved together. For the sleeve. That means it was a special miracle when they would make the big day kahuna. As they would come off the loom, they would come off as a ready-made piece of clothing, except for one small piece which was sewn on as a sleeve. Says the Gemara, the Tanya Beisad Shbik Dekuna Nereges Bifleasva was woven on its own. When its bekesim beged was attached, sewn on. Umagas at Pisa Sayad, it reached the palm. I don't know how long you like your sleeves. Now you go to buy yourself a new jacket, so you try it. It's a fitness sleeves. I particularly like that my sleeves shouldn't go too far down. I find it uncomfortable. But the mice of the kernim sleeves of the shirt reached all the way to the palm, not to the wrist, to the palm, right? So it says magas at pisa sayad. That was considered the right shear, just like it had to fit. If it was too short, it was no good. Too long, it was no good. The right measure was up to the palm. Right. Okay. So you shecht with a knife. It doesn't mean that you'll get to. I don't know if. Everybody knows that David made 3 boxes. Here's a picture of the 3 boxes. Ben put it on the group. Here's the 3 boxes. There was gold, wood, gold. And now we're going to go a little bit into the measures of it. And inside the middle one should 8 made out of tisha was 9 tfachim tall. Penimi shazov inside it shmoina was 8 tfachim. Chitzin asol mashu 10 and a bit. If you've got 3 boxes, you obviously can understand that the measurements of each one has to come slightly smaller as you're going further in order they should all fit in. So the first one was 10 tefachim deep. The next one was 9 tefachim deep. The next one was 8 tefachim deep, and each one slotted in nicely. That the outside one was 11 tefachim deep, umashu and a bit more. What happened was like this: the bottom of the outer one, the floor of it, according to one Beis, was thin, like a thin plate. And the other one, it was a tefach thick of gold at the bottom. you'd have 3 boxes, one inside the other, like stackable cups. The bottom one, the outside gold one, according to one Beis, it had an extra tefach thick. And look over here, it shows you a picture. It's also on the group. Inside is 10 tefachim. On the outside is machlokes, whether there was an extra tefach on the outside. Says the Gemara, why did they have a little bit more than 10 tefachim as a crown? What happened was when you would put the placement of the kaporos, which was a lid. How thick was the kaporos? Anybody know? How thick was the kaporos? A tefach thick. So you'd have a lid going on the box of the oven. Above that, there would be a little bit extra like a crown. And there were 3 different vessels in the Beis Hamikdash that had a crown. And here it shows you a picture. Again, it's on the group as well. You'd have the Mizbeach had a little crown going around the 4 corners. The Shulchan had one by the top of the table below the posts. And the oven by the by the top box, it have a crown. Says the Gemara, there are 3 crowns. Shel Mizbeach, V'shel Oven, V'shel Shulchan. Shel Mizbeach, the Mizbeach represents Kahuna, represents the Avoid in the Beis Hamikdash. What happened to it? Zocha An v'Notloi. An Kohen took that one. Kahuna belongs to An Kohen. Shel Shulchan of the table, Zocha David. David HaMelech was Zocha. Because table represents wealth and royalty. And the royalty belongs to David. V'Notloi. Shel Ovoin of the Sefer Torah, Adai Monachu, Kol Avoid Tzlikach Yoma V'Yikach. Anybody who wants the crown of Torah can help themselves. That it's the least of them, because if anybody can help themselves, it's usually the least important. Through me, kings become king, meaning that royalty only comes through Torah. So we see that Torah is more important than royalty. Rashi asks the question, how do we know it's more important than Kahuna? So Rashi says, because the Pasuk says, that it is more important than the Kohen Gadol that goes lifnai v'lifnim. So we see that Torah is more important, that so to speak, that Torah is more important than Kahuna and more important than Malchus. Says the Gemara, right? Now the Gemara brings a list of different Gemaras that the Gemara discusses that some people when they learn Torah makes them grow. Some people when they learn Torah it doesn't do them any good. Those are the people that learn Torah in the incorrect manner without doing it correctly. Now, the truth of the matter is nowadays this is less it's less common that people should learn Torah just in order to harm other people, to put people down. But now the world's going to bring a list of different drashas that it can be that Torah can be harmful if it's learned for the wrong reasons. Yomi asks a contradiction. Which is a stranger, and we read it as a crown. Zocha, if a person does it correctly, Torah could be a crown. Lo zocha, if a person doesn't learn Torah correctly, Zoe menu Torah becomes like a stranger. You should make for yourself an oven. Also, Klali Son needed to make the box. That Talmud Chacham, really Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to make the box, but then Klali Son made it for him. And Talmud Chacham, the people of the town, are supposed to do the job for him. Beis it means the symbol of having gold box on the inside and a gold box on the outside, and wood in the middle is to tell you that Talmud Chacham, that the inside is not like the outside. Talmud Chacham is not a Talmud Chacham. So somebody pretends to be a Talmud Chacham, but deep inside he's not genuine. He's not a Talmud Chacham. The Sas Emes asks Kashi, says, I'm really still no answer. The Sas Emes says he doesn't understand that surely the inside should be even better than the outside, because at the end of the day, you've got the outside is what other people see. That you should. A person should behave with modesty. A person shouldn't show off for his greatness. The inside should be full of greatness. Why does the Lord say that the inside and the outside should be equal? On the contrary, the inside should be much greater. At the very least, the inside should be less than the outside. Nikon Nissav is called an abomination. It is a disgrace. It is disgraceful and disgusting. Ish, a man drinks like water. Avlo still does sins. What does it mean to drink water? What's drinking water a marshal to? Torah. Because Torah is compared to water. So therefore, therefore the pasuk is saying that somebody who drinks Torah like water, but it still behaves in an abominable manner, is a disgrace. What's the price in the hand of a fool? To buy wisdom, but he has no heart. Woe to them, to the enemies of Talmidei Chachamim. Who are the enemies of Talmidei Chachamim? What? Talmidei Chachamim themselves. Why do we say enemies of Talmidei Chachamim? Because we don't want to say negatively again. Talmidei Chachamim. Woe to them, to the enemies of Talmidei Chachamim. Talmidei Chachamim. They have no Machas of Yanai Chaval. Woe at the less they talto. He has no garden. The tower of it, but makes himself a beautiful garden, a gate to the gateway. That means imagine a person works very hard to make a gateway, but there's nothing to make the gateway to. So that's a complete waste of time. So too, the Torah brings a person to Yiras Shamayim. If a person has no Yiras Shamayim, what's he doing all the Torah for? Machris of Yanai. So I did that. I beg of you, don't get both Gehennims. Very, very scary Gemara. Also, don't get both Gehennims. Don't get Gehennim in this world and the next world. How can you get Gehennim in both worlds? If you spend your life learning Torah in order to put people down, so you work very, very, very hard, and you work very hard in this world, so you don't enjoy this world. And then the next world, you also get Gehennim. So what happens is you get both Gehennims. But one was something that he met somebody who had been to Voloshin, and then it got swept up by Zionism, and he has become completely non-religious at all, kept nothing. And what happened was, he said to him, I remember this Gemara. He mentioned this Gemara. He said, by me, this curse applies. I'll get him in the next world because I don't keep anything. I got to get him in this world because how can I enjoy anything in this world after having spent some years in Voloshin, I can't remember who we learned by, and realizing that the only true pleasure in life is learning Torah, and I've got to throw it away. So I've got both Gehennims. It's scary. The person
realizes he's put it all away.
Yeah.
Surely he can come back.
I know, it's not always easy. The person realizes, like his. The word psalm can also mean psalm, which means a medication. Zocha, a person does it correctly, it's a medicine for life. It's like a poison for death. Somebody who learns to correctly, skillfully, it's a medication for life. The Yoman law, a person doesn't learn the Torah correctly, some of the Moisa, it's medication for death. It brings joy. Tzrufa means that it purifies. Zocha, a person makes him happy. It purifies him through suffering. You can learn from the pasuk itself. Zocha, a person does it correctly. It purifies him for life. It purifies him and grinds him to death. Yiras Hashem to him when this Lahadam Chanina Zalim Torah Tahara, something learns Torah in purity. Mahi Noise Ishavach that he what's the word? He marries a woman and he learns Torah. I find it very funny. I've got two cousins. One who just got married at the age of about 38 after dating for about 12 years. And yesterday, another cousin of mine, a cousin once removed, actually, I should say, got engaged, age of 18, flew to Antwerp, got engaged on the spot, and flew back all in one day. So,
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it. No meeting during the Zoom. Way to Achsidish, it's Chernobyl or something.
It's all been sorted for them.
No, we sorted for them. Can you imagine doing such a thing? My sir, he's 18, my son's 19. I said, wife, we have to get on with it. We're leaving our son too old. But the Maisa, it's interesting. You've got different ways of doing things. The Gemara over here says that Yiras Hashem Tahira, that you want her to be pure, you should get married first. Because the person's married is less likely to have Yehuda, and then that way the Torah lasts better. I'm sure all of you did that. You met, you call us 120 minutes, got engaged. What? That's it. That's the way to do it. So we make it. It's funny for me because I'm not used to the idea that, to get engaged so quickly. On the other hand, other people will say, you get engaged after 5-10 meetings, also mad. And then, okay. Oh. Says the Gemara. Edus Hashem ne'emana. It is faithful. The person learns Torah. The Torah itself testifies about the person, what kind of person he is. Okay. Now we're going back to the Beis Hamikdash. The Torah in one place says Ma'aser Voikem, and one place says Ma'aser Choshev. Ma'aseh Roikim is called needlework. Ma'aseh Choshev is called weaving work. The Gemara's got two explanations how to reconcile these two psukim, Ma'aseh Roikim and Ma'aseh Choshev. So the Gemara says inside, Ma'aseh Roikim, Ma'aseh Choshev, Omar Blazer Sheroikim B'mokim Shechoshvin. He understands that what you do is like this. All of it was done with needlework. None of it was done weaving. Now, how did you do it? You would first take a colored pen or something, a dye, and you would design where you were planning to weave. Sew, and then you would sew. So you would first draw the picture of where you're going to sew. That's how he explains it. But Tanus Fritam Nechemia, no, he argues, Roikim is to sew, to stitch. It was only one picture. It was two images. If you imagine, if this is a piece of cloth, so if it's Ma'aseh Roikim, you stitch it. If you stitch a piece of cloth and you turn it around, you're only going to see the same picture, just inverted. That is Ma'aseh Roikim. Ma'aseh Choshev, what you do is like this. It's a weaving. Weaving is like sometimes you have like a belt where you could actually open it and one side is one color, one side is another color. How is it possible? Because it's actually two pieces of material. Ma'aseh Choshev is two separate pieces of material. Where on one side you weave it one way, one side you weave it the other way. So you can actually say, for example, you can have an eagle on one side and a lion on the other. Because it's two separate. Actually, this is actually two. This actually every tissue nowadays is 2-ply usually, like hard to open. That's right. Tapestry, one's a tapestry which you're stitching onto, very good, and one's double-sided, two separate pieces, and then you could weave them separate pictures and put them together. So that's a steal. Oh, says the Gemara. With these, you would ask them with tumim. I just want to mention very briefly, the Rashi says in this week's parsha, Rashi explains in this week's parsha two explanations. One explanation is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu notices that in Klal Yisrael that they are tzaddikim, they don't do averos. There will be a time when the Malachim, when they want to know what Hashem is doing, who will they ask? They'll ask Klal Yisrael. Because we will be closer to Hashem than the Malachim, and they'll have to ask Klal Yisrael, there'll be a time, they'll say to Klal Yisrael, what's Hashem doing? The Malachim, Gavir, Michal will come to us, what's Hashem doing? Because we'll be closer to Hashem than the Malachim. That's one explanation. Rashi has another explanation. That Klal Yisrael don't rely on sorcery and all kinds of other kinds of ways of finding out the future. Why? Because they don't need to do that. What do? They ask the Urim V'Tumim or the Navi, and they're told immediately what's going to happen. That means the power of Klal Yisrael is that we have the Urim V'Tumim was one of the special things Klal Yisrael had, that they could have a guaranteed information about the future just through the Urim V'Tumim. And now we're going to learn a bit about it. There were two kinds of Kohanim Gedolim. There was a Kohen Gadol that did the avodah of the Beis Hamikdash, and there was a Kohen Gadol whose job was to be the leader of war. Now, he didn't actually serve in the Kodesh HaKadoshim when Yom Kippur and Meshuach Melchama, but he had certain halachas of a Kohen Gadol. One of the halachas was that he wore 8 clothes like a Kohen Gadol. Shenemar Bigdei HaKadosh Shenan Yu LeBonav Acharov. He shall be for his sons after him. The word after him is a bit spare. Why? Because normally when you say to somebody after he dies, his children take over, you don't need to say after him. Obviously, the son's going to take after him. Not going to take over in his lifetime. So what's Achav? The Mishra B'Gdol Achav, anybody that takes over from his greatness. That means even the Kohen Meshach Melchama also has to wait 8 birds. Some say it was anonymous. The halacha is that if a Kohen Gadol dies, we give the job to his son if he's suitable. Even if there's somebody more suitable to be a Kohen Gadol, if the son of a Kohen Gadol is suitable, even if there's somebody better, we use the son. Masha'ika, when it comes to the Kohen Gadol who is in charge of war, his son only gets the job if he's the most suitable. Let's just try and get this clear. A Kohen Gadol, his son takes over as long as he's suitable, even if there's somebody greater. And Meshuach Melchama, the general of the army, the son only took it over if he was the best. If there was somebody better, somebody else. Says the Gemara, Tafabah and Gimel Dalef, Tamrima. The person says that the son takes over, the one who goes into the Moed. Now the Kohen Gadol goes into the Moed, the Kohen Meshach Melchama doesn't, So when the pasuk talks about the son taking over, it's only the one that goes into al-moed. Misha voy lo al-moed. If it's true that he wears 8 clothes, Michse Chazi, he's fit. His main purpose is for war. God's main purpose is for the Al-Moed. So therefore, the pasuk says that the son shall take over. The pasuk that talks about the son taking over speaks specifically about the son taking over who's going into the Al-Moed, and that's only by a normal Kohen God and not by a Kohen Mashiach. Because Kohen Mashiach never goes into the Al-Moed. That's not his main purpose. Okay, we're going to stop here. We're up to Meisvei.